Hey, you lovely lot, and welcome back to Crime Analyst, your go-to YouTube channel for true crime, for expert analysis and insight and a measured response. And I place the victims at the centre of their own narrative and challenge narratives that don't make sense, but most importantly, ensure that victims' voices are heard, particularly when it comes to women. And today I'm going to be covering day 2 of the coroner's inquest into the death of Nicola Bulley, a mother of 2. And you probably saw my day 1 coverage where I gave some of the headlines. Well, this is going to be slightly shorter and I want to get into the detail of it. Some very significant things happened today. But before I do, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you who've subscribed. Hello and welcome to new subscribers. It's great to have you on board. Thank you for your comments. I will get to them, and for your super thanks and all those good things. Please keep doing it all and sharing me, and let's grow the crime analyst community. Okay, so today at the coroner's inquest, it was an important day. The family of Nicola gave evidence today. Her parents, her sister Louise Cunningham, and her partner of 12 years, Paul Ansell, and others too. But it was an emotional day. And in fact, proceedings were paused at one point due to the overwhelming emotion of giving evidence. And let's remember, we're talking about real people here who have lost someone that they dearly love and want answers to what happened on January the 27th. So let's not lose sight of that. So Louise Cunningham, Nicola's sister, she said that Nikki was her big sister and that it was actually her who called the ambulance on January the 10th because she had concerns about Nicola. And a mental health nurse attended. Nicola was in bed, she was intoxicated, and it was a very short conversation with Nicola because she didn't want to speak. And Nicola apparently was fuming that Louise had called an ambulance. And the next day she did attend A&E. She said that she fell and that she hit her head, and she had a CT scan. But the CT scan was normal, there wasn't any injury. And after January the 10th and 11th, Nicola then limited her alcohol intake. And her sister talked about the fact that she had been on HRT, hormone replacement therapy medication, and that the side effects had caused Nicola problems and that she came off the HRT, but then she went back on. And that this was a blip. And Paul Ansell also gave evidence and said similarly. He said that it was a blip, and then after that, Nicola was okay. And in fact, the day before she disappeared, she was full of beans. She was excited about a new deal through her work, and she was future planning, but she was full of beans. And therefore, her just disappearing was uncharacteristic. And Nicola's GP, Dr. Rebecca Gray, she also gave evidence and said that there was nothing to suggest that Nicola was suicidal. So that's important. And Louise also underlined that point by saying that there's no way that Nicola would have left her dog, Willow, unattended, that Willow was like her third child. Now, I can relate to that. I'm a golden doodle mum and mum of Raffi, and I always say that Beatrice, my golden doodle, is my firstborn, my daughter. So I completely understand what Louise was saying. Her family said the night before she was full of beans, she was excited about this new business deal, she was future planning events, and that she was going to a spa with Louise. Now, the family also asked the coroner to find Nicola's death an accident based on all the evidence that was heard at the hearing. And I want to read to you what Dr. James Adeley said. He said this: Nicola was becoming increasingly successful at her career as a mortgage broker, and her behaviour during a parent's visit the night before she went missing was entirely normal. The circumstances found after her death would also be extremely unusual for suicide, where Nikki left Willow, a dog to whom she was devoted, and was described as a third child, alone on the riverbank. He said Miss Bulley would have had sufficient knowledge of cold water shock to realise as to how rapidly a death may occur, as otherwise she may be spotted and saved. For these and many other reasons, I discount a conclusion of suicide, as there's no evidence to support this conclusion. There was also no natural disease that contributed to Nikki's death. The remaining conclusion is that of accidental death. Okay, so that's important. And he also ruled out a third party being involved. So he believes, based on all the evidence that he's heard from all the experts at the coroner's inquest across 2 days, that Nikki's death was this unfortunate accident. Now, we don't know how Nicola ended up in the water, and we may never know. And as I've said before, we don't always know with investigations absolutely every detail of it. So there are still questions to be answered, however, and they are questions relating to why did it take the police divers so long to find Nicola? And why did the police release their working hypothesis so early on, prior to the investigation being progressed, prior to the CCTV, etc., being done? And also, why did they release personal information about Nicola more than 2 weeks along in the investigation? And that personal information being released about alcohol struggles and the menopause, I've talked about that. And each of these matters, so please go back and revisit my previous videos about the case. So College of Policing, their review is still to be finished and published. So I will be looking out for this, and I'm sure many of you will be too. I think there are real lessons to be learned here, and I mean proper lessons to be learned, not just a report being written and then it's done and dusted. So there are lessons for future investigations. And I really believe those lessons do need to be learned, because social media is here to stay. And we do need best practice when women go missing and when there are circumstances like this of what information should be released in a fast-paced investigation like this. So I'm going to end there. And I also just want to say that I'm thinking about Nicola, I'm thinking about her children and her family, but her children specifically. They're growing up without their mama, and I'm a mama first and foremost, and that for me is just unbearable to think about. And so I ask you to keep Nicola's children, her family, in your hearts and in your thoughts. And before you post things, please think about it. Before you comment, please think about it. Nicola's family, friends, and maybe her children will see that. And so I'm asking you please to be respectful, hold Nicola and her children and family in your hearts and in your thoughts. Until next time, be curious, ask questions, and always trust your instincts.